Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
Good morning. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yep. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the February 6th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Kalo has our dog from the dog kennel.
Our featured dog this week is an 8 to 9 month old husky. He was found right off East 36th Street in Lorain. Great temperament, great personality, housebroken, real nice friendly dog. Make a great addition to someone's family. He's available for adoption. How many dogs do we have now, Jack? 31. And we have 30 other dogs available. He's not quite your type.
He needs to run around.
Yeah.
He needs a lot of energy.
Madam Clerk?
Okay, we have a proclamation this morning.
Yes, thank you very much. For those of you who are familiar with the Commissioners' meetings, we've got a proclamation honoring Shirley R. Johnson and her many years of community involvement. I was at the Oberlin City Council meeting a couple, 3 weeks ago and got to say a few comments. Shirley was quite involved. She was basically our ACLU rep up here, making sure we were doing the job we're supposed to do and following all the rules. I saw you smiling, David. And she's going to be missed. But the proclamation reads, whereas Shirley R. Johnson, 96, Oberlin, passed away peacefully at home surrounded by her children on Friday, January 11, 2013. And whereas Shirley was born July 15, 1917 in Chicago, Illinois, daughter of Charles A. and Agnes S. Reinwald, and whereas Miss Johnson graduated from New York Flushing High School in 1935, Antioch College in 1940, Yellow Springs, Ohio, and after graduation married fellow Antioch College graduate Douglas Johnson in June 1940. And whereas in 1947 Mr. and Mrs. Johnson moved to Oberlin, so her husband Doug could accept the position of co-manager of Lorain Veterans Housing Association. And whereas Shirley R. Johnson in the late 1940s accepted an invitation to attend an Oberlin School District Board meeting, which led her to become an active participant to open meeting laws. And whereas Shirley continued to advance transparency and fairness in matters relating to the execution of the public's business of Oberlin City Council, Oberlin Public Library, Oberlin School Board, and Lorain County Board of Commissioners, where she and her husband persistently acted as watchdogs on behalf of the residents of Lorain County. That's without a doubt. Whereas Miss Johnson was a special learning disabilities teacher in the Oberlin School District between 1960 and 1994, and whereas Miss Johnson was a civil libertarian devoting much of her life supporting individual rights under the First Amendment, she and her husband became founders of the Oberlin ACLU chapter and of the state organization ACLU of Ohio. Whereas Shirley received numerous state and local awards which recognize her for her commitment to public education, as well as the basic constitution rights in fair housing, good government, open records, and to the fairness benefit of collective bargaining. In 1995, she received a Distinguished Community Service Award from Oberlin College during their 162nd commencement exercises. And whereas Shirley R. Johnson proved that an ordinary citizen who appreciated the importance of an informed citizenry could make a difference in the work of public institutions in terms of accountability, fairness, and transparency. And whereas Shirley R. Johnson was a noble civic and community member of Lorain County, and she truly will be missed by her family and the whole community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Lorain County Board of Commissioners, we hereby honor Shirley R. Johnson and her many years of community service to Lorain County, and her memory will continue to inspire for many years. Witness our signatures the 6th day of February 2013, Ted Kalo, Lori Kokoski, and Tom Williams. And we'll forward this to the family in Oberlin. David, unless you'd like to take a couple words?
I'd like to take it.
Beautiful.
And I only want to live to 96 if I could be as spunky as Shirley Johnson, you know? I mean,
Not as
that's,
spunky as her now.
I know, that's true. David?
Thank you, Commissioners. I'd like an extra minute or so, if that's
Sure.
possible. I was happy, first of all, to be able to sign in with my R, my middle initial, and I'm not going to do that anymore, but in Shirley's honor, I did that today. And I'm happy that Elizabeth Rummix emailed me yesterday afternoon at 3:45 to say, "Are you going, I hope, to the meeting tomorrow because of the proclamation?" And I just got back yesterday morning from a very quick trip out to Chicago and was happy that she got in touch because it meant I didn't have to look to see if it was on the agenda, which I was about to do, but also because it meant Elizabeth was keeping tabs on things. And she let me know she had a responsibility to take somebody to a medical appointment this morning, or she would have been here. And I emailed her back and said I would certainly be here and I would yield to Emmy if I didn't know if Shirley's daughter was going to come or not, but I'd be happy to take that back to them. And we'll see that Emmy gets here. Over the weekend, I was at the ACLU of Ohio board meeting, and Reed Wood of Oberlin had written the tribute to Shirley for that board. And I'd like to read you part of it and then make a couple of other comments on the commissioners in particular and their role, I think, in Shirley's life. This is the ACLU celebrates the life and accomplishments of Shirley R. Johnson. Shirley R.'s commitment to civil rights and civil liberties began in the 1930s and continued unflagging throughout her life. She was a founding member of the Yellow Springs chapter in 1948 and the Oberlin, later North Central chapter in 1951 of the ACLU of Ohio, which incidentally wasn't itself put together until years after that. And she regularly attended school board, city council, and county commissioners' meeting in an effort to ensure open and effective government. Shirley R. was unrelenting in her monitoring of civic affairs, regularly noting failures or lapses by public officials, but that was because she expected those government organizations and officials to act transparently and consistently in following the laws and the Constitution. She didn't just attend occasional meetings of the Oberlin Board of Education, Oberlin City Council, and the Lorain County Commissioners. She attended those meetings week after week, month after month for decades. And she took copious notes while often lamenting the incomplete nature of official minutes, notes to which she referred regularly when pointing out apparent illegal, unconstitutional, or inconsistent actions by those public bodies and officials. Shirley R. could be demanding of colleagues as well, but again it was because she expected a strong commitment to civil liberties and civic engagement from all of us. She would be on the phone regularly, asking if we had seen an article in that day's newspaper outlining some action or event that required our attention. She would suggest that someone should write a letter to the editor or attend the next meeting of the particular public body that was mentioned to monitor what was happening. And she saw this kind of involvement not as something extraordinary, but as something that everyone should do. Feisty until the end of her life, her mind continued to remain sharp even as her body finally failed her and kept her from being present in person at public meetings. As we marvel at all Shirley R. Johnson did and all she represented, we can ask ourselves what an appropriate tribute might be. She would not want us to offer noble sentiments or name programs or buildings in her memory. Rather, she would ask each of us to recommit our energies to preserving civil liberties, open and transparent government, and the sometimes tenuous rights guaranteed us by the Constitution. That's what citizens do in a democracy, And that is all Shirley R. Johnson would expect of us. The thing I really wanted to say there was, you notice Reed referred to week after week, month after month for decades. Well, it was only 1 decade for the county commissioners. It was 5 decades for the Oberlin Board of Education. And I think the thing that I wanted to, well, 2 things I wanted to bring out here. Also realize that the federal Freedom of Information Act had its seeds in Chuck Mosher's sunshine laws in Ohio in the late 50s. And Chuck Mosher was the publisher of the Oberlin News Tribune. This conversation's been going on in Oberlin and people from Oberlin for an awfully long time. But Shirley, as going to the school board meetings and as going to the city council meetings, could be looked upon as a local activist, somebody who just was going to see that her local government bodies were doing something. The commissioners really weren't her field of activity. She did it because she didn't have a dog in the fight, because almost everything you do wouldn't affect her directly, because we have a charter in Oberlin that would mean our city council is passing laws for us, and otherwise you're administering state, responsibilities. She really came here as a disinterested person. She doesn't have the building department even thinking they might start being, the legitimate authority for that in Oberlin. So I think it's her commitment to government everywhere that should be a certain way, not just her government. And the fact that later in her life, and later in Doug's as well, they also took on this challenge of saying, it's not just in Oberlin, it's not just my government I want like this, you should want this government like this, and until you figure out a way to monitor your own stuff, I'm going to monitor it. And it's kind of like you either build community or you hire it done. Well, you didn't have to hire Shirley, but she was partly somebody who didn't have this interest, and I'm trying to take some steps to make sure that her legacy and I don't want to come here forever. I don't want to come here for decades, but I do want somebody to come here for decades who's just kind of following it for the sake of following it, and kind of as a sentinel for all of us out there who can't get to these meetings. And I really appreciate your resolution and things that are coming out of Oberlin as well, but it's not 30 days yet, and it's like we've had a 30-day period of mourning, and it's a huge thing, and those notes are going to be saved. So you will be able to see your your performance in her handwriting after. It's probably going to take a couple of years to curate all those papers, but they will be saved. And so thank you again, commissioners, and I'll make sure Emmy and Ricky get that proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You want to pick it up
Well
from
said.
Janice afterwards? You want to take it now? Okay, there you go.
David, you were a
said,
good
David.
friend of hers, so appreciate all you done. So
Just the driver.
yeah.
Just the driver.
Well, you were part to got her here, so
Madam Clerk?
Okay, there are no job and family bills for today. Investments,
So moved.
Second?
any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kukowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
aye.
Appropriations,
So moved.
Second?
any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kukowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Transfers,
So moved.
Second?
any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kukowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
There are no advances for today. Requisitions,
So moved.
Second?
any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kukowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Travel,
So moved.
Second?
any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kukowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Bills,
So moved.
Second?
any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kukowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Number 9, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of commissioners.
Mr. Cordez?
Thank you, Commissioner Kalo. I do have potential new hire at Transit, in IT, Golden Acres, Job and Family Services. Should take a few minutes in executive session. I want to discuss those applications with you. And also, if we need to update on continuing labor negotiations, which will probably be a standard throughout the course of the year, just in case we get into those conversations if we have time, because we're going to be negotiating all year through the contracts.
Well, we have 11 o'clock CIC meeting.
I understand that. It'll be brief. So both those topics are allowable for executive session discussions under the Sunshine Law. So to exit the conclusion of our regular board meeting today, we go into executive session and we discuss those items mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, number 10, approve and waive the reading of the same for the Lorain County Board of Commissioners meeting minutes of January 30, 2013.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kokoski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Number 11, under transit, declare it's necessary to levy a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the Lorain County Transit at .40 mils for 5 years to be on the May 7, 2013 ballot.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
Mr. Innes, any comments at all, or the ballot language?
Yes, I had prepared two possible versions of that. One would be just limited to an operating levy. The other would be a more general one so that the funds could be used to access federal monies for equipment and that sort of thing. So I would assume that you would prefer, it makes the language on the ballot a little bit longer, but that gives you more flexibility as to what you can use those monies for. So I would recommend the version in which you follow the exact language of the revised code and essentially do it all purposes related to the transit.
I would agree also. Board?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
We really need to get the word out that this is only $2 a year per household, to really shore up some funding needed to keep transit going and hopefully increase a couple of routes.
Absolutely, Commissioner. And we're going to do a bit of a talking campaign. We'll do editorial boards when we get closer. It's a little far out right now. As you said, it's $2 per household, but I want to make sure that people don't think we're trying to fool them. Obviously, the balancing act will be the value of your house, your home. Right. So some will pay a little bit more than $2, some will less than $2, but we're going by the number of households. Average.
It'll generate about $246,000 a year.
Well, sometimes people come back and they want to be literal about what you said,
Mm-hmm.
and well, mine's going to be $3.02, and you said it was $2. So we're just taking the number of households. That's different than the size and value of the residents right now. We'll have that information as we move forward for talking points. But as we've been discussing, most people participate in the food drive with a couple cans of food. Same $2. They put some change in the basket at Christmas time for the Salvation Army, same $2. It's not a lot to bring a lot of value to those that have no other option in our community. And also, we got to continue to push the message that we multiply those dollars by matching federal dollars. So it's a twofer.
Right, so for $250, if it brings in $250, we're going to generate $500.
At least $500.
Right.
Some of the match money goes all the way up to 80%. We get 80% on our 20%. So I want to be honest and upfront with this and as transparent as Dave likes to talk as possible. I believe we're going to get more than $500,000 when we match FTA dollars, but that's the minimum amount we're going to get.
We have a lot of rolling stock that we need to keep on the road so they don't take it away from us. And like we did do the transit route out to Cleveland to keep those buses rolling. And I know we all received a letter, email from people who are begging us, please don't take this route away. It's helping me get back and forth to work. And we need to do a better job of promoting that as well. And I'm not sure how to go about doing that, but we were kind of relying on the ridership that people were going to take to the casino to fill those seats. And now that the casino has their own charter buses, we need to get the word out that route is available for people going to work in Cleveland.
Well, it's a good segue. Our ridership, since the casino has decided to try to bring people in for free.
No paying them to come in, actually.
Well,
They're giving them
actually,
extra money.
Yeah, they're paying them, right. Who's paying who at the end of the day is the question.
Well, yeah.
Our ridership hasn't fallen off. In fact, our ridership is growing a little bit. It's not growing fast. We're running now between 40 and 50 people a day. So we weren't getting casino traffic. We were hoping to use the casino
Right.
traffic for those need riders, because there may be some convenience riders. I truly think that the folks that go into casino have different time frames they're going in, and their stays are a little bit longer. I don't think anybody's getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go to the casino, and they certainly probably are not coming back at 5:30 in the evening if they go during the day. But we tried, but our ridership is building, but it's building very, very slowly.
Yeah, do we have the financials on it?
I haven't run the financials yet, Commissioner, and I will on the Cleveland route. And I know we talked about that last week. I just haven't caught up with that
Okay.
issue.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Do we need to re-vote on the version that Jerry said? I
Do
wasn't
it as
clear.
amended?
No.
We didn't specify in the,
Did we vote? I thought we went into discussion.
We didn't vote yet.
Okay.
but do we have,
I didn't know if we had to do it again because of what
No.
Jerry said.
no.
Okay, we're good?
No, we have to
Okay.
vote on it, though. We just,
Okay. Okay. Mr. Williams,
Aye.
did you? Are we re-voting? I guess.
Oh.
I'm
no, we
certain-
hadn't voted yet.
Oh,
We
okay,
just
I'm sorry.
Made a
Discussion,
motion and a
yeah.
second.
All right. Do you want me to read it then again?
No.
No, that's okay,
Just call
for
the
vote.
vote.
Okay, please, vote, please.
Aye?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, sorry for the
Hey,
confusion.
you're
okay.
doing a great job.
Okay, Janice
It's
is
been a-
filling in.
worry,
She hasn't
don't
been
worry,
up here in a
Janice.
couple of years. Our normal clerk is out, had surgery, so.
Yeah.
Janice,
Yeah.
when we, after they make a motion and it's seconded, you call it by who motioned, who seconded, and then the third member of the board. You call the vote.
She
So
would
it's
have
usually
got
Ted,
that.
That's
me, and
okay.
Tom.
I know
All right.
usually, but.
That's all right.
Yeah.
All right, number 12 under engineer.
That's okay. We got off track a little bit.
That's all right. Amend resolution number 1325, adopted January 14 of 2013, authorizing the engineer to execute contract modification 2 with R.E. Warner and Associates of Westlake for construction management services on Island Road in Eaton Township. Amendment is to reflect the account should be account number engineering, MVR professional services.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kukowski?
Aye?
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Number 13, under Sheriff, declare it necessary to levy a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitations for the Lorain County Drug Task Force for 5 years to be on the May 7, 2013 ballot at additional mills of .65, .70, .75, or .80.
So moved.
Second?
Any
Mr. Cavanaugh
discussion?
and Sheriff, any comments at all on this? We've done it with 4 different possibilities, generating anywhere from $400,000 to $492,000 to fund the drug task force.
And it's .065 and .070, not, does that make a difference?
Right, that's what it is.
I know.
065, .070.
Right, it was, well, she said .65.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I
I
looked
didn't
at-
realize
Yeah,
that. I'm
that's
sorry.
Okay.
That makes a
Okay.
difference.
Yeah, okay.
Chief?
Yes, sir. We were probably looking for the .080. Just our drug levy this year, and talking with Lisa and Dave O'Connor is only going to bring in $315,000 from our normal drug levy account that's out there that we share with the crime lab. So with property devaluations, everything else has drastically come down, and that's originally, like we said the last time up here, it was put on the ballot in 1982, and it still stays at the present funding. So that's, and all of our grant money too is also drying up. We put in for at least 2 a year, if not 3. We're basically, with the moving violation one, we do pretty decent. We're looking at probably about $180,000 for that this year to help supplement us. The JAG grant funding is well below 50% from what we used to get. And for our last task force commanders meeting, they're kind of looking at the federal funding on JAG is dropping another 8.1 for the next successive 4 years unless something changes with Washington.
And to operate your department effectively, it's $1 million a year budget.
A little over $1 million. Yeah, we
Little over
reduced
$1
it. We're actually less 3 staff than what we were.
I'm fine with the .080 mills raising $492,624.
Second that.
Okay.
Before you vote, I would just like them to indicate, because we sometimes get different people tuning in, that the drug problems, while we read about them in Lorain, in the newspaper, and we read about them occasionally in Elyria too, they affect this whole community. And I think can you tell just a little bit about what's going on, especially with heroin these days in our community?
Well, as I'm sure most of you, we've had numerous articles in the paper and talking with Doc Evans. This last year in 2012, we had over 64 overdose deaths, basically related with drug activity. The rise of the heroin and prescription drugs has been a major factor of that, or a combination thereof. Probably about 85 to 87% of all of our undercover investigations are either heroin or prescription drugs at this point. And it's almost an epidemic. Law enforcement alone is not going to solve that issue, so we have a consortium of support groups working with Doc Evans and everyone else trying to come up with some supporting systems that might help us there too. It's going to take all of us collectively to do it. But as you well know, a lot of these individuals will have a habit of maybe 200, 300 or higher a day. If they're not working, the only place they're going to be is in your houses or trying to steal from your break-in. A lot of the burglaries that we've had recently, and that stays true with Lorain and Elyria too, are folks that are on heroin or prescription drugs. So a lot of prescription drugs that were out there, they can't afford those $40, $50, $60 a pill just for one. So they revert to heroin, which is goes for about $10, $15 a bundle. And once you get hooked there, then obviously it just continues and escalates, and that's kind of the evolution we're in right now. So it affects everybody. It's not just Lorain, Elyria, or the cities. It's in every township and every community out there.
Wonderful. We appreciate your support through this process.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner, just to clarify the language, so because of the statutory, basically the way this is worded is it's for the support of the criminal justice services in support of the Lorain County Sheriff's Drug Task Force. So just so you understand, it's technically worded that way for the sheriff, exclusively for the Drug Task Force.
Right.
Which is the intent.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. So this is again for .080?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a vote?
Yeah, you have to call for the vote.
I call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Cordez?
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Kavanaugh.
I have no additional comments.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Ennis?
I do have one brief matter of pending litigation that I would like to provide the commissioners with a status report on that matter.
Okay. Commissioners?
I pass on my report today.
Well, past week, busy week, attending a lot of meetings, but attended the Chamber of Commerce annual meeting, had a great turnout at the Spitzer Conference Center on Thursday, going over the programs they've offered, how they did through the year, especially in regards to their membership campaign, 180 new members, and the services they offer. On Friday at the college, Team Lorain County held their annual Groundhog Day economic forecast. They brought in the vice president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, who gave a national view of the economy going forward, looking at continued growth but slow growth. And Team Lorain County executive meeting also met this week. End of my report.
Yeah, I want to give a special thank you to Team Lorain County for a great event on February 1st. And also, first time in history there that we had a sitting congressman, and we actually had two congressmen, Bob Gibbs and Jim Jordan. Great event. Actually pleased to see that we had the two congressmen here getting involved in the local issues. So I'd like to thank them. Busy week. Actually, me and Mr. Cordez were out in Grafton Village last night, trying to walk around to find our way in a little bit of a snowstorm, but good meeting with the 911 discussion there. We offered to have City Council come out to our 911 facility, take a look at it, and see if they would be interested in having the county take over their dispatch service. Received calls later in the evening thanking us, even from the public service director, and he would like to sit down and have a discussion with us later this week.
And your report?
End of my report.
One other thing, congratulations to the Midview School District
Oh,
for
yeah.
passing your levy yesterday. Great job, 62+%. Nice to see the community supporting their education. We have a meeting.
Yeah, we have a
9:45. Can we go into the presentation now?
For the fracking?
Fracking
Yeah.
meeting?
Ellen Mavrich?
Hi, yes.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Please introduce yourself and the organization you're with and/or where you're from, and it's all
My
yours.
name is Ellen Mavrich, and I am an individual. I'm from Lorain County. My family lives here. We recently moved to Lorain County from Washington County, Pennsylvania. Washington County is kind of a sweet spot for the Marcellus shale drilling in Pennsylvania. So I'm here today to try to share with you some of the things that we've learned. This new highly industrial process has presented many challenges in Pennsylvania. Now, the natural gas industry likes to say this is not a new process, but that's not exactly true. In the 1970s, the U.S. Department of Energy knew that there was energy or that there was gas in shale rock, so they didn't know how to get it. They formed a public-private research and development initiative, and they were able to figure out how to extract this gas. There were two criteria to the initiative. One, it had to be technically feasible, and two, it had to be economically profitable. So they were able to extract this gas using a new process. The process combined hydrofracking with the use of millions of gallons of fluid laced with chemicals and sand and directional drilling. So this new process, called high volume slick water fracturing, has only been used for about 10 years. Unfortunately, these innovators were so thrilled that they were able to access this new energy source, they failed to consider how this new technology would play out in the real world. What is the fate of the chemicals which remain in the ground? What do we do with the toxic frac fluid and the radioactive materials which flow back up the bore well during production and drilling? What are the air quality and climate implications? Can this process be done safely where people live? And is it wise to commit ourselves to yet another finite fossil fuel? There were no environmental impact studies done. There were no public health risk assessments done. In 2004, under Christine Todd Whitman's EPA, a study was done that concluded that there was no risk from this industry to groundwater. In 2005, at the urging of John Cheney, the Halliburton loophole was established, and this effectively prevented the EPA from regulating this industry. So the safeguards, which normally would be used to protect the environment and communities, do not apply to this industry. And as of today, this industry is exempt from 7 environmental protections. There are 3 areas that I would like to address today, and that is jobs, energy independence, and risks. Everyone likes to hear about jobs coming to our community. We think it's going to build the tax base. We think it's going to allow for more disposable income. We hope it will encourage young people to come and to stay in our community so that they'll be vibrant. We think it will help people to raise families and build homes. So these are all the reasons that we want jobs in our communities. Has that panned out in Pennsylvania? What is the employment picture as a result of this gas boom? The gas industry claims that they have produced 234,000 jobs in Pennsylvania since 2008. The Keystone Research Center says that number is more like 20,000 since 2008. Now, what we found is there have been new hires, without a doubt, but most of these new hires are in the service industry. They're waitresses, they're hotel staff, they're airport shuttle drivers, they're bartenders. That's where most of these jobs are coming from, and they're mostly low-paying and oftentimes part-time jobs. Now, there are higher-paying jobs, the drill site jobs, and without a doubt, those are there, But most of those jobs are held by out-of-state workers. These are workers who come in from Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas. And these are highly dangerous jobs. The National Institute on Occupational Health and Safety estimates that oil and gas workers are 7 times more likely to die on their jobs than workers in other industries. So the majority of jobs we see are low-paying jobs. They're created to support this out-of-state workforce. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of December of 2012, the unemployment rate in Pennsylvania is still higher than the national average. So in Pennsylvania, we are not seeing a great increase in the number of jobs. The jobs we are seeing are not good quality jobs. They're not family supporting jobs. And the well-paying jobs we are seeing are temporary in nature, they're transient, they're dangerous, and most of them are held by out-of-state workers. All over Pennsylvania, the industry's advertisements like to refer to energy independence. It's all over the radio and the television. The industry is bombarding us with ads. Energy independence is on its way back, or natural gas putting us in control of our energy future. They keep repeating, there's 100 years of reserves. Well, this messaging is, if we develop natural gas, if we lease our mineral rights, if we allow the rush of this gas boom, we will somehow magically become energy independent. We will be transported back to a time before we knew about peak oil. Unfortunately, energy independence is advertising rhetoric. This is an idea being sold to the public. And the other idea being sold to the public is that if you don't completely support this extraction in this industry, that you are somehow unpatriotic. This is something thought up by marketing types sitting around a conference room, trying to discuss how to make people accept this highly industrial and toxic process in their neighborhoods. All this hoopla and hype is clouding our vision and disengaging us from the conversations we need to have about our future and the future of our children. We're not going to become energy independent by developing natural gas. We may reach some level of energy security, but only if we carefully and thoughtfully develop an energy plan. We cannot leave this decision alone to energy corporations. These are multinational corporations. They are responsible only to their shareholders to extract resources as inexpensively as possible and then sell to the market, which will generate the most in return. This is their sole purpose. They have no country allegiance. Natural gas companies here are financially involved with foreign corporations all over the world. In addition, they are involved with companies that are owned by countries. Chesapeake Energy sold 1/3 of its interest in the Eagle Ford shale play in Texas to China's CNOOC. CNOOC Group is a state-owned oil company. It's fully owned by the government of the People's Republic of China. Chesapeake also sold part of its holdings in Ohio and West Virginia to the Norwegian company Statoil ASA. Norway's government owns 67% of the shares of Statoil. Foreign corporations have invested billions in gas and drilling here in the United States. Right now in the US, there's a glut of gas, driving prices lower. Energy companies can earn 3 or 4 times more by selling gas on the global market. These corporations want to get the gas to the global market to make the most on their investments, as evidenced in the 15 or so applications to export LNG. This is why the push is on to get pipelines in place and to get export facilities at the coasts, so the gas can be shipped to other markets where they can earn more money. But the industry is also trying to create a greater market for natural gas here in the United States. Most of the natural gas used now is for heating, but the industry is trying to create a market in natural gas vehicles and natural gas fueling stations. And I think the federal government is offering tax incentives to invest in these. But what do you think is going to happen to the price of gas here in the US if we use natural gas for transportation and power plants and heating and cooking, and then export as well. How will this drive up the price? And how long will this abundant but limited resource last? The risks involved in shale gas extraction are many. Pennsylvania has been grappling with this industry's impacts after the fact. Instead of putting out the sign, "We are open for business," it would have been better for the Commonwealth to proceed slowly and smartly and to have a plan. Pennsylvania's Governor Tom Corbett helped to make Pennsylvania, or he hoped to make Pennsylvania the next energy capital. He and his predecessor hoped to promote the industry by giving them wide berth to operate in the state. Governor Corbett didn't want to burden what he called this fledgling industry by imposing too many legal safeguards or fees, which would have protected the communities in Pennsylvania. But while giving the industry this wide berth, officials allowed the compromising of areas which they should have held safe for the people of Pennsylvania. For example, the people of Pennsylvania found out that the state was allowing frackers to dispose of their waste in waste disposal facilities. Now, these facilities were not equipped to remove the contaminants that are in the waste, but the idea was they'll dilute it with the sewage and then they'll dispose of it in the state's lakes and streams. Unfortunately, these rivers and streams are the water supply for over 350,000 people. So we, in short order, had a water quality violation. At that same time, the state realized that if they continued this process at the current volume, that they would have salinated every freshwater stream in the state in the matter of 2 years. So our governor politely asked the drillers to stop doing that, and he asked the wastewater treatment facilities to please stop doing that as well. In Pennsylvania, the industry wanted uniform ordinances. They didn't want to have to deal with individual townships' rules and regulations. So the legislature complied, and they passed what's called Act 13. Act 13 generally states that local townships do not have authority to regulate this industry. The townships are in an uproar over this, and they've sued the Commonwealth, which is yet to be determined. The outcome of that is yet to be determined. The governor also did not want to assess a tax on this industry, but he did agree to an impact fee. The impact fee legislation is highly complicated with many vague areas. It was put together rather quickly. How exactly is this money to be used? Which communities should receive the money, and how will the money be divided? And what constitutes an impact? If you have a compressor station in your town, do you receive impact money, or do you only receive it if you have wells? So it's complicated. Should communities that have banned drilling, like Pittsburgh, should they receive impact money? I mean, none of these communities have their own air, but they're all affected by this industrial process. The impact fee legislation was passed last year, and communities are still trying to sort it out. Many business leaders feel that the gas industry has had a positive impact. Large landowners have received millions in leases, and that has boosted the tax base. But while there has been economic gains, there are also economic losses. In the drilling areas of Pennsylvania, hospitals, law enforcement, human services, and regulators are all being stressed. In the town of Towanda in Bradford County, the crime rate has increased by 40%. The monthly rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in this town was $300. In the past 5 years, that's increased to $1,000 a month. The cost of rents and food prices have skyrocketed, causing most of the longtime residents who were just getting by to now face homelessness or food insecurity. The waiting list for public housing assistance has soared. Hospitals are feeling the impact as well. Jersey Shore Hospital of North Central Pennsylvania reported an operating loss, which it associates with the gas boom. The hospital reported a loss of $770,000 while providing more than $3 million in free care to people unable to pay for it. The facility's CEO indicated it was a direct result of the influx of gas workers. This same CEO indicates that the subcontractors involved in this business do not provide insurance to their employees. And this uncompensated care is the highest figure this hospital has ever seen. In 2012, Pennsylvania had only 83 oil and gas well inspectors and upwards of 25,000 oil and gas wells. According to the DEP's inspection policy, they should have performed more than 90,000 inspections on these wells. In reality, they were only able to inspect more than 15,000, or it was like 15,368. This number represents 19% of what they said they should have been inspecting. Along with this industry comes accidents and contaminations. Blowouts, toxic spills, contamination, and gas migration have accompanied this development. This is a fact. The adverse effects to humans and animals and our environment are also a fact. These events are well documented. They are occurring in Pennsylvania, and they are also occurring in every shale play throughout the country. In Pennsylvania, we've learned that fracking can contaminate groundwater through well casing failures. The industry itself has indicated that 6% of all well casings fail immediately. In 2010, in Pennsylvania, our wells experienced a 6.9 failure rate. In 2011, the well failure rate in Pennsylvania was 7.2. And in the 2012 period up till August, the failure rate was 6.6. So these rates are consistent with what the industry is saying, and it also shows that it's not improving. They're not getting better at this. Fracking can contaminate the air during a part of well completion called flowback. This is when the frac fluids, water, and gas come to the surface at a high velocity and a high volume. This mixture contains a high volume of volatile organic compounds and methane, along with air toxins. The flowback process can last from 3 to 10 days, and the air can also be compromised during the processing in trying to get this gas to market. Methane is a very potent greenhouse gas. It is almost 72 times as potent as CO2. And a recent study by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the University of Colorado in Boulder indicates that gas extraction process reveals a 4% leakage in methane. And at this level, natural gas loses its environmental advantage over coal. A large part of Pennsylvania's economy is tied to farming and tourism and recreation. The rush to develop natural gas has negatively impacted all of these industries. For example, many dairy farmers in drilling areas have sold their herds. They've leased to the industry and they've gone out of business. A 2010 study by Penn State's College of Agricultural Sciences draws a direct correlation between the decline of cow numbers and dairy production in areas with high drilling activity. Between 2007 and 2010, in counties with 150 or more gas wells, cow numbers have decreased by 18.7% on average, compared to only 1.2% in counties with no Marcellus wells. The co-author of this study sees this as a danger to the entire industry in Pennsylvania. If the number of farms and agricultural activity fall too low, essential supporting businesses like feed stores and animal veterinarians will leave or quit, making it difficult for the remaining farmers to access needed inputs in markets. If this domino effect takes place and farming and dairy production collapse, even the large inflow from the gas shale industry might not be able to make up the difference. The shale gas boom has made a contribution to the economy of Pennsylvania as a whole, yet risking a sustainable industry like farming for an unsustainable one like fossil fuel extraction may prove to be too expensive in the end. Many in Pennsylvania have seen what appears to be the decline of the boom already, the bust. Drilling overall has been in a decline. Bradford County has seen a substantial decline, from 408 shale gas wells drilled in 2011 to 149 wells drilled through November of 2012. People are wondering if it's been worth it. The overall rig count in the country nationally declined like 12%. This is according to Baker Hughes. In Pennsylvania, the rig count is reduced by 40% in this past year. In Louisiana and Arkansas, the rig count went down 50%. So Ohio faces these same challenges. With the addition of injection wells, Ohio has an even greater challenge. How do Ohioans feel about the disparity between actual jobs created and the numbers hyped by the industry? Do they even know? Are we helping them to know? How do Ohioans feel about the fact that this industry is racing to ship this energy to overseas markets? Again, do they know? Are we helping the people of Ohio to know? And how do Ohioans feel to know that this industry brings great risk to human and animal health and to our environment? And what should be done here in Ohio to avoid the same mistakes made in Pennsylvania? It's easy to consider an economic plus, but the responsible thing to do is to consider the impact as a whole. You have to consider the pluses and the minuses. And we need to promote discussion and dialogue. And as county commissioners, you have the opportunity to show leadership on this issue. Thank you for letting me be here to speak today.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation.
A lot of good information.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Madam Clerk?
Okay. Under clerk's report, tonight there will be a 6 o'clock meeting. The commissioners will have a public hearing on the building department. And then on Monday, February 11th at 10 o'clock a.m., the commissioners will view culvert number 779 north of State Route 18 in Brighton. Under board correspondence,
Move the reading be waived.
Second?
any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kokoski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Any public comment today?
Anyone wishing to address the board this morning?
David, you already had your 3 minutes.
That was about Shirley
I'm
R. though.
kidding.
Hey.
This is David Ashenhurst on his own, without the R. David Ashenhurst, Oberlin. Just following up a little bit on a couple of things Ellen talked about, but with specific reference to the county commissioners. I remember coming here a couple of months ago and telling you about the upcoming meeting of the Black River Remedial Action Plan Coordinating Committee. That meeting was had. Our new general health district director was there. He has a background in environmental health. He seems like a really interesting guy. And I think that remedial action plan may become a more significant player in how all of this links together in Lorain County. And just a couple of things. One is to remind the commissioners that this goes straight to the EPA. It doesn't go through the state EPA or some other things. There are 4 rivers in Ohio that have these plans. The Maumee, the Black, the Cuyahoga, and the Ashtabula. The Black is really the most contained one, and it's almost entirely in Lorain County, but interestingly, one of the participants in that, in the RAP, is the Soil and Water Conservation District of Medina County. And right near the shores of the Black in Medina County is a fracking well. I went to that meeting, as I say, was happy to meet the new director, and I gave him a draft of something that I didn't feel it necessary to perfect before I gave it to him, but it was kind of pointing out that we had this very long Black River Remedial Action Plan document from December of 2011. On the commissioner's behalf, Kristen Brandon has been going to those meetings. I urge you to somewhat widen your perspective on those meetings and get a couple more people there, perhaps. I listed 5 things that I immediately couldn't see in that plan that they might want to think about over the next few years. Fracking, and I don't have to repeat any of that said. You know, the Wellington, the rupture of the pressurized petroleum pipeline in Wellington. It didn't reach the black. What do we do if it does? What's in place? How bad could that be? The fact that we're now recognizing that municipalities have jurisdiction for clean water in their water supply 20 miles upstream from where they get their water. That means that a whole lot of people have an interest in keeping the Black River clean, both from industrial failures, from injection wells, and all of this is not really addressed by the plan at this point. Stormwater management and the changes that are going on in Lorain County stormwater management utility planning and operation is not in there yet. And finally, and I just have a little question about this one as well, the sludge pond. The sludge pond we're all reading about in Pittsfield Township. Is this post-treated? What is it? And where are the permits? Where should the permits have been? Who does have jurisdiction over it? And I appreciate Mr. Innes's very guarded comments in the newspaper about this. I would like to ask him something which I think he can answer. When is the next meeting of a public body in Lorain County that has any jurisdiction, real jurisdiction over that pond going to take place? In other words, I understand that the Pittsfield trustees are, not having a moratorium because to have a moratorium would indicate they thought it was, legally done, and they don't want to say that yet. Does the health district have, is somebody else going to be holding a meeting on this, or is all of the action on this that's in the public, that's available for public review, being done in the trustees meetings and these other sort of advocacy meetings that are being called together? Is there any other official public meeting going to happen about this in the next month?
Well, the trustees are looking at it as a zoning issue. There are appeals pending before the EPA. I don't think there's any specific hearings regarding it. I understand the Army Corps of Engineers is looking at it. I know our Soil and Water Department,
Well, actually,
Yeah,
Soil and Water would be doing it on behalf of the board. We have permitting process for erosion control and sediment control and stormwater runoff. Clearly, we're looking to make sure that we've done the phase 2 permitting in accordance with locally developed and adopted regulations. That doesn't give us the right to prevent the sludge pond. It only gives us the right to make sure that when they disturb a certain amount of ground, they're in compliance with that permitting process. So everybody's looking from their piece of the puzzle, or that brings together the whole clear picture. Yes. If everybody does what they're supposed to do, then I think this will be handled in an appropriate manner. Probably the biggest player in this is going to be whether it's zoned correctly to be there, and then how the EPA feels about it being there. I think those are the two major issues. Ours are more minor compliance issues that can be corrected quite easily by the company. So we're not the big gun in the room.
Right, understood. Remind me one more time, when does the Stormwater Management District have its regular meetings?
We had a meeting several months ago, and we have another meeting coming up. Are you talking about the Stormwater Management District or the Advisory Committee?
Perhaps both.
The Stormwater Management District usually will meet 2 or 3 times a year or as necessary.
Okay.
And
Does the Advisory Committee have a regular meeting?
Well, let me finish.
Okay, sorry.
Because we don't want to call them into session when there's no actionable items. There's a few things coming up, and I anticipate scheduling a meeting sometime in March, having a meeting with the District Board of Directors. The SWAC meeting, the Stormwater Advisory Committee, we usually meet, we've been meeting every month. We skipped a few in the winter. There's not a lot of stormwater issues in November and December. They met 2 weeks ago and was scheduled a meeting in February. We have actionable items. And at that meeting, I'm probably going to recommend that we go to every other month. They meet, I want to say, the same night as the township trustee meeting, right
Third.
before, at 5:30.
Okay, third Wednesday.
And it's up here.
Thursday.
Thursday, right? Thursday. It's up here in the front meeting room.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to come.
I appreciate it. I probably will.
No, David, just let me point out that the SWAC, though, is different than the district, and they're not under the same public notification. They're just an advisory committee that meets and talks about issues. So it's a different type of structure. They're not a governmental entity or a governing body or anything else.
Is there, are there rules covering that advisory committee?
There's
Do they
rules for
have bylaws?
there's rules for bowling leagues. That doesn't put them under the same requirements either. Okay, so I just want to make that clear to you before you roll down a course of action here. They're an advisory committee. They're under no governmental structure. They're not called for in the Ohio Revised Code. We use them as a sounding board for various things that we want to do in the community.
But you said they have actionable items.
I'm talking about things to talk about, David. You can mix words. I'm sure bowling leagues have actionable items too, okay?
Well,
They don't have decision-making authority.
I understand, but if they have recommending authority to that district without further input.
Everybody
I
in this
just-
room has recommending authority to that district.
It's an
Anybody
open
can-
public meeting, David.
It is
That's
an
it,
open,
yeah.
that's
Oh,
what
it's
I'm
not,
asking.
but it's not a public meeting.
Yeah. Well,
It's a meeting.
If it's covered by section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code, as I say, I'd like clarification on that from the advisory committee, the district, or the assistant county prosecutor. Please, you know where to find me.
Well, okay, you understand my position.
Shirley would be so proud. We're going to start calling you David R. for now on.
Hi, Rick Kruek from Village Kipton, and I was wondering, after this outstanding discussion about fracking here, if the commissioners were going to be doing any commenting or responding to a lot of the points that she brought up at this point here at this meeting, or if that's, not possible.
It was more of
Yeah.
a presentation, Rick.
I
We've been
understand.
following it from the state organization, the County Commissioners Association is involved in this. It's all over the board statewide. Again, we don't have any authority. Currently, hell, we had a hard time just getting the road use maintenance agreements with the companies, so they'll at least clean up their mess. When it comes to wind energy or solar, large trucks coming through, those companies are required to do road use maintenance agreements by revised code. But fracking has none of that liability, and I agree with a lot of the points you said. It's being looked into. We've gone through the Farm Bureau presentation. We've had presentations in Columbus on it. It's all over the board. I actually was at a meeting today. I'm on the LEADCO board, which is the offshore wind, true clean energy. And I was talking to a commissioner from Ashtabula County who thinks it's the greatest thing in the world. And the amount of dollars that are coming in their community, they're very happy with. But again, it's newer here. It hasn't really entered Lorain County at this point, but there's a lot of statewide issues that have to be dealt with. Again, the fluid after it's used. I know solid waste landfills can't take it because there was an opportunity where they thought they could take the liquid and turn it into a solid and then dispose of it. That hasn't been true as of yet. So there's a lot of stories out there in regards to the fracking industry, pros, cons, and in-betweens, I would guess, at this point. There's no official action from the Board of Commissioners that actually has any standing because there is no standing.
I understand that, and that's part of the problem, I think. Is there any way that county commissioners can bring pressure to have the state respond to, I guess, what the citizens are really concerned about rather than what the gas and oil industry are concerned about? Because it seems like we're never heard.
Right.
I
At this
know,
point, you can see what the governor's done with his
everybody's tired of
budget.
hearing that, but it's
The governor's
fact.
looking to put a tax on them to do an income tax
Looking to.
reduction. But there's been no hardcore anything out of the state legislature. At this point, it would be the state legislature would make up the rules, or the federal EPA at that point. And she could probably answer that better than I could.
That's it. Can we get our state legislature representatives from this area into this forum so that they can respond to their constituents? Because they're never
An invitation could
here.
be sent out. I'm sure an invitation could be sent out, but normally Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays are in Columbus.
Right.
Ellen, have you ever had an opportunity to talk to anybody at the state level?
I have.
You have? And are they receptive?
I don't think that they really understand all the problems with this industry, and again, I think for the most part, it's exciting. The money is exciting, you know, a new energy source is exciting.
You got to do it up here.
She said they're more excited about the money coming in and
Right.
don't really understand the concerns and issues that relate to fracking.
Well, that seems to be
It was
the
an
problem.
eye-opener. I had not heard a lot of what you had said today, and it's very eye-opening, and I wish more people from the state would listen. And, I mean, both sides, come together. I'm sure there's two sides to every story, but you definitely have some issues that you raise that are alarming.
That seems to be the biggest problem. There's a lack of education and a lot of misinformation out there.
People see dollar
Pie in
signs,
the
and they don't
sky,
really
yeah.
care about anything else.
Yes,
sometimes.
exactly. Jobs that don't materialize. We're not better than we were before this fracking situation started. If anything, we're worse off. So I don't know. I'm just getting tired of. Well, never mind. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question to the sheriff. Yesterday on my way to work, a coyote ran out from one field across the road into another field, and somebody told me you're supposed to notify authorities or someone if you find or see a coyote in an area. Is that true?
Well, there's so many that's in our county right now.
So no, you don't have to let anybody know about that? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Samuel Rubin. I live in Oberlin, and I too would like to speak out on fracking issues today. I think Ms. Mavrich did an absolutely incredible job of laying out the bare bones of the issue, but what drove me to speak was your questions about what the state of Ohio is doing. And I wanted to direct your attention, commissioners, to two bills in particular, House Bill 278 from 2004 and Senate Bill 315 from 2012. And the most relevant portion of House Bill 278 is a portion that strips communities of local control over fracking. So, just similar to Act 13 in Pennsylvania, what we have is a situation where communities are no longer in control of themselves. I do not know of a single instance where the ODNR has ever denied a permit for a fracking well. And so what we have is a situation where resources are being extracted from communities whether they want to or not. It's the complete subversion of democracy. To me, I really believe in democracy, the idea that the people should be able to make decisions about the world that we live in. To me, that's what it is. And Senate Bill 315 has a lot of things in it. It's a very, very messy, ugly, complicated bill. But one of the things that is particularly relevant is the explicit attempt to make medical professionals' jobs more difficult when it comes to fracking. I wasn't planning on speaking today, so you've caught me without the relevant title code that it amends. Maybe Ellen could back me up here, but I'm not too hopeful on that one. But I will certainly look that up and forward it to you. But the statute, completely ambiguous language, tough to tell what it actually is going to do. It hasn't been interpreted by the courts yet, but its intent is absolutely dead certain. It's an attempt to make it more difficult for doctors to disclose to their patients and to their communities what fracking is doing. And so what we have here is a situation where we have this untested, unproven industry attempting to make it more difficult for our communities to remain healthy while they're forcibly extracting our resources. And one of the things Rick was beginning to talk about was what can county commissioners do? You guys have stood on the basis that we do not have standing to really address this. I would, however, note that you do have the power to pass resolutions, and there are several resolutions that communities across the state of Ohio have been passing. And I would also really push you on the statement that you do not have standing. I believe that legally, under the current under the current Ohio law, that is technically true, but it is my understanding that as our county commissioners, you form the leadership of our county, the elected leadership of our county. And to me, leadership means standing up for the people who have appointed you as leaders. And so I'm not sure what that looks like. We can talk a lot more about that, but I think this is a situation where we do have to kind of assert our rights as a community to be self-determination and our ability to live in a beautiful part of Ohio that values families and values the dignity and respect of all human beings. And so thank you very much for your time this morning, and thank you very much for your concern on this issue.
Is there a resolution that the other people and other commissioners have, do you have a copy of that?
I can get a couple of them, Commissioners Association, but as yet, we have no legal standing. When I say no standing, because we've been pushing it from our state. I serve on the board at our state Commissioners Association, and we have been pushing for rules and the ability to govern, and we've been rebuffed at every angle around it, because it's a very hot topic around the state.
Yeah, and
so it's not a slam dunk, everybody's anti or everybody's pro. There's different issues in each and every community. And she pointed out a lot of them they had in Pennsylvania. So I wasn't aware Pittsburgh banned it, though. That was, yes. The entire Allegheny County, or just the city of Pittsburgh?
City of Pittsburgh.
City of Pittsburgh.
And that attempted banning is beginning to appear in Ohio. We so far have 3 cities in Ohio that have taken a similar action.
And who might those be?
Broadview Heights, Yellow Springs, and Mansfield.
Okay.
There are more in the works, actively in the works of pursuing that activity.
Yellow Springs, home of Antioch College, right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Anyone else wishing to address the board this morning? I'll make a motion to move into executive session as outlined by the county administrator and the assistant county prosecutor.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kokoski?
Aye.
Sorry, Mr. Williams?
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.